this is Aggie, and this is just a quick video presentation on the equipment I've got. This is because I had quite a few questions from different people interested in buying their own equipment, and they wanted advice as to what to buy. So I'm just going to do a quick overview. My kit has also changed over the last year, so I'll tell you about my changes and why. So I started off with some basic cameras, which I had in the past, and then obviously at some point I found myself without a camera. I think my most recent one broke, and then I just sort of started thinking seriously, what do I need to get to really have a professional grade equipment, but obviously in the same time it being compact and good for me to take around and just shoot by myself. And sort of I had a chat with my dad, and he suggested that instead of going for a mid-range kind of product, I should just go for the top kind of professional quality. So I took a loan and I bought a whole lot of equipment. And because at the time Sony FS7s are obviously used for documentary quite frequently, but also the Sony Alpha series was quite popular for being used even in the industry professionally. Sony A7S2 to shoot in low light conditions. So I started looking into the Sony Alpha series. I actually decided to go for the Sony A7R2. That is because maybe it doesn't have a bright sensor, but it's got a large sensor. It's great for photography as well. So I just sort of thought, I'm not actually going to shoot in low light that much, but I also take photos. So it would be good to have the R model rather than S. But the Sony A7S 2 or 3 now is definitely good for videography, probably even better than the R. I mean, definitely better from the reviews that I've seen. So I'm not sure whether I would make that choice again, but I'm pretty happy with the camera that I've got, and so far it has definitely fulfilled my expectations. So at first, the lenses that I bought two primes, 24, 55, and a telezoom, which was 70-300. And I soon realized that this setup doesn't really work for me. I mean, the telelens was okay, but it was quite soft at the very end of the spectrum. So at 300, it was quite blurry. And obviously there was this problem of having to change if you wanted to switch to landscape. Then I found that with the primes, when I was doing if I was doing some videography stuff like music video and stuff, which I tend to do as well, that was fine, that worked. But for documentary, having primes doesn't necessarily work, especially if you have to run around and shoot variety of different scenarios. So I have sold my 24 prime, experimented with the 24-70 for a bit, but then sold it as well. I kept my 55 prime, which is beautiful, artistic. It's got a shallow depth of field, and it's just very, very nice. So I got rid of the 24, and then eventually of the 24-70, I got a prime 14mm prime Samyang instead. So this is a Samyang. It has been really lovely for any kind of time lapses, landscape, like night lapses, sky lapses, that it was great for, and indoor spaces as well. This is the Sony Zeiss 55 that I've got. It's got aperture 1.8, and it's just been great. It's probably something that I shoot with the most. But then I also got rid of my 70-300 zoom, which I wasn't completely happy with, and eventually I got this 24-240 Sony lens, and this is something that I'm just hoping is going to be my go-to zoom. It's got a fantastic range. It's going to be great for traveling, but also for any documentary work. You can stretch yourself from a landscape shot to a close-up. So that's that for lenses. I have had an action cam, because it's nice to have an option for a second camera if you need to. This action cam broke down at some point after a few years, And to replace that, I invested in this Osmo Pocket, which again is partly as a second camera, partly as something that I would take traveling with me. It's obviously very compact, but also it's got the stabilizer, and it produces a good quality images. The company that makes Osmo is DJI, and it's the same company that makes the drones. Since I was interested in some aerial photography and footage, I also invested in a drone. I recently also did a drone license, and so I invested in a Mavic Pro, which again is really compact. Again, that's kind of my equipment has been bought like a few years back, so obviously there are new models for the cameras and new models for the drone, but this is the equipment that I still have. The Mavic Pro, it extends, it's very great for that reason. It's very compact, and that was something important to me, that I can take it traveling with me. So there's the Mavic, and alongside with my camera and lenses, I have had a set of mics. So first of all, I got this something that a colleague recommended, which is a Tascam recorder and a lapel mic in one, and that was something that I was using at first. It's very dependable thing, so it records beautifully. You just leave it running on your contributor or on your speaker, whoever. Obviously there is the disadvantage that you then need to sync your audio from your microphone with the audio from camera, but that's okay. Then obviously a shotgun mic, which is like a nice standard. This is a Rode video mic, and that's something that you pop on top of the camera, and that basically does a nice sound for you. There is a version, stereo version for that. And then finally I got just one set of one radio mic, which is Rode Link, and that comes with a lapel mic as well, which I've just put away. And for my lenses, I've got a set of filters. Now I've got a circular polarizer, and I've got a variable ND. Now I don't find myself using the polarizer that awful lot, but I use the ND filter quite a lot, especially if I'm shooting in S-Log outside. Obviously you want to be able to go down with your aperture, and obviously that's not possible having the ISO 800 on this camera as default in S-Log. You will need that ND filter. Then I bought not too long ago actually a monitor, because it's nice not having to look into a really small screen on camera. So that attaches either on top of the camera through the hot shoe mount, and yeah, it's great to be able to see, especially if you're recording with someone, if you're working on a project with someone else who is a director and they want to have a look, and obviously it's nice. I mean, I'm talking about the smaller projects, obviously, like my independent projects. So with it all, I also have bought at the very beginning a crane stabilizer, and that's a Zion, no idea how you pronounce it, crane stabilizer, and it has been very handy, very helpful in getting these nice smooth shots. This is the first version, so obviously they've released, I think, the second and even a third now. The second one had the feature of the follow focus, which is nice because you can't really go around and be focusing on your lens with this one. So that's the downside, but yeah, the newer version of that crane, and DJI now has the crane as well, have the follow focus option. So that would be my main bulk of the equipment. Then some other bits. I obviously have, I have set of lights, a couple of LEDs, and a couple of soft boxes. This is mainly, LEDs are great, you can take them anywhere. Soft boxes are mainly for like indoor shoots that I do sometimes. It's nice to have a sandbag if you're somewhere outdoor, and obviously you're either you don't have the tripod with you, or or you just can't carry it, or or you just there it is impossible to set a tripod. It's nice to be able to put that on a rock and stabilize your camera. And then I've got a tripod. One good tip with a tripod, this is a Manfrotto tripod. I just went for a solid, reputable brand, I guess, something that was recommended to me. But an important feature of the tripod was the adjustable head, which is something that's great because you can align it so that your frame is straight without having to fiddle with the legs. That was probably one of the most important features of the tripod. If you can, look for the adjustable head, and also if you're using the tripod for videography, look for fluid heads that will provide you with this nice and smooth pan and tilt system. A few more bits probably that I don't have here is just a monopod. Again, something that I recently bought just for the sake of traveling, probably just instead of carrying a tripod with you, you could have a monopod. I also have a sort of like a shoulder rig, which is some kind of a different version. Obviously, the stabilizer has a certain load that you can put on it. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to put a lens that big on the stabilizer, so this kind of camera work with the bigger lenses would have to be done on the shoulder rig or on the tripod. And yeah, I've got some accessories like color filters for light and stuff like this, but this is the main, especially for outdoor shooting, I guess. I'm really happy to have that new lens that I've invested in, which is a 24 to 240, but obviously 240 isn't isn't that kind of big magnification, especially if you're looking to do film wildlife. Ideally you'd like a 500, 600. So for me, this sustains my needs, especially for traveling. But for shooting wildlife, definitely, I mean, for filming wildlife, definitely something like, for Sony's got the 100 to 600 millimeters, or obviously in the industry, often Sigmas are being used with the Canon mounts and then the converter. But I just went with my equipment. I just bought Sony, and then I bought all the native Sony lenses because I knew that if I was to upgrade, I would be upgrading to Sony, like Sony FS5 or FS7, and they would be compatible. But yeah, there are options. So yeah, that's a little review of my equipment, and hope that's been helpful for you and getting your equipment.